That last video was a heartbreaker to piece together, so hopefully this one can put a smile on your face. Hey, what's up? It's your boy Dynasty back again on this Monday night with another Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection update because we got a bunch of other things of note to discuss from this awesome 1-hour interview that MK Secrets actually had over at Gamescom. Digital Eclipse's Dan Amrich spoke a bunch about this collection. If you missed it a few hours ago, I actually posted the real reason why we did not get not one, not two, not three, but 4 games, including gold, in the Legacy Collection, along with the PS2 games like, 3D era stuff, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, Shaolin Monks. It's jam-packed with a bunch of great quotes, and honestly, like I just said, it was kind of a heartbreaker to piece together. So this one I'm hoping is more positive because it's all about the good stuff. For starters, we got confirmation that in the Sub-Zero Mythologies build we'll be playing in the Legacy Collection, you'll be able to give your character like infinite lives. We had confirmation of a rewind button via the trailer from a couple of days ago, but now we know you could actually add infinite lives. Also, we got confirmation that it almost seems at one point in time that hidden, never officially released build of Special Forces that included Sonya Blade kind of sort of almost made the cut, but the ROM got given to Dan Amrich and the team a bit too late into production. So because it was a bit too janky and glitchy and buggy, and because they really didn't have enough time to fix it, that's ultimately why we did not get that new version of Special Forces of Sonya Blade. I'm just glad to know that it was almost there. Thankfully, he does confirm screenshots of that will actually still be in the documentary. Also, we got confirmation on how, in fact, Digital Eclipse got their hands on MK3 WaveNet. It turns out that 16-bit Stephanie Brownback from NetherRealm Studios actually came in clutch and provided Digital Eclipse with everything they needed to make it happen. And Dan also confirms how you guys can actually use Noob Saibot in this never before re-release build that nobody even knew existed other than like 500 people. So got for you guys some confirmation on that. And last but certainly not least, in the most recent Gamescom trailer, we got confirmation of a CRT filter, which is awesome. There's also some discussion on the fact that the game at times looks a bit low resolution, and I know it's something you guys have been pointing out to me, especially in my comment section after seeing the Evo Trilogy gameplay. A lot of you guys just don't like how the game looks or calling it ugly, and I get it completely. Well, it seems like the CRT filter should hopefully smooth it all out. You know what I mean? So, let's get positive, let's get happy. Before we break all this stuff down, again, this is coming from mksecrets.com in their interview that they dropped this morning. Again, it's an hour-long, jam-packed with a bunch of legacy content, so if you don't want to hear me yap, the entire interview will be linked in the description of this video. So, thank you, MK Secrets, for asking the questions that a lot of us have been wanting to ask. So, with that said, drop a like if you're hyped, and without further ado, let's get into it. So let's kick things off with how exactly Digital Eclipse managed to get MK3 WaveNet into the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. So again, this quote is from Dan Amrich. Opens up by saying, "I've got to call out to Stephanie Brownback at NetherRealm Studios because early on, when we were talking about what games could be included, we assumed WaveNet was off the table. We assumed it was lost, right? We honestly didn't think we'd be able to get it. And Stephanie Brownback was the one who, when she saw some of our earlier plans, said, 'How come you guys aren't doing WaveNet?' And we said, wait, you have the WaveNet version?" She goes, "Yeah, we have Ultimate here. If we gave it to you, could you run it?" And we're like, "Yeah, I think so." In 2 days, we had it up and running in a basic form because it is primarily Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 with additional code. Our engineers had to navigate that extra networking code, figure out how to disable it, or let it time out when it tries to connect to a network that hasn't existed in 28 years. Now, following that quote, we get this right here from Dan. The WaveNet code itself, we have no idea what that is. We would never even attempt to rebuild a custom online network from 1997. So this has been a big secret for us, knowing that only the super hardcore fans would have ever even heard a rumor about an online arcade version. You had to be in Chicago, or maybe it was San Francisco or New York, maybe both. with a T1 line in your arcade to be able to play this thing. We figure only about 500 people have ever played this version of the game, so to be able to bring this out to an audience of millions, Digital Eclipse is very serious about digital preservation, about the history of games, making sure these things don't get lost forever. To us, this is one of the biggest wins of this collection, to be able to bring this back to people and put it out on physical media, so it will not ever get lost again. It wasn't lost, really, just misplaced. NetherRealm had it, and we realized, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity. So thank you to Stephanie for making us realize it was possible, because I'll admit, when I made my list of games I thought we should include, I didn't include it. I didn't think it existed anymore. I'm so happy to be wrong. It's fantastic to be able to do that for the community. So shout out to 16-bit head QA analysts. I'm really intrigued to actually get my hands on this build of UMK3 because, again, I didn't even know it existed. And the fact that it has Noob Saibot initially as a secret character on Kano's slot, yeah, I'm intrigued. And speaking of Noob Saibot, again, how do you actually get access to Noob in the Legacy Collection? Well, they made it pretty easy. Check this out. Noob Saibot is a playable character, and he's traditionally accessed through a special button combination when selecting Kano. In our version, we've added a toggle that lets you easily choose which player should be Noob Saibot at the start of the game. You can still use the original button combination if you prefer, but the toggle provides a more direct option for those who just want to jump in and play as them. Importantly, we're not modifying the OG ROM. Everything we're doing is happening in RAM. We read the original game's code as is and apply a few tweaks in memory. That's how we enable some of the new modes we're offering, including access to Noob Saibot. Once we locate where Noob Saibot is in memory and how he's triggered, we can simply activate that flag during runtime. Although he only has one move. Does he really only have one move? Is this like in his whole moveset? The one special move, I'm hoping? I need to get some confirmation on this. Although he only has one move, the teleport slam, it's a fun and iconic one. Ultimately, this inclusion is more about historical curiosity. We don't expect players to spend hundreds of hours on this obscure version of the game, especially since the original online system no longer exists. But the fact that you can still see and experience this rare feature yourself, that's what matters to us at Digital Eclipse. Somebody in the comment section try to find on a forum from like 20 years ago if Noob Saibot has high punch, low punch, high kick, low kick, the block button. Or does he really have no moves other than the damn teleport slam? There's no way, right? Surely he's got the basics. Surely. So yeah, that's how we got UMK3 WaveNet again. Confirmed offline play, and I'm assuming modern online play, right? I hope. I shouldn't really have to ask this question. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty nice discussion about UMK3 WaveNet because, again, I didn't even realize that you would have to select him with a secret button combination on Kano's select screen slot. So I think it's pretty cool how they actually found a way to simplify the entire process. So boom, there you go. Now let's talk about CRT filters. Dan kicks things off by saying when you're making an arcade game, whether it's pixel-based or polygonal, part of creating the art assets at the time involved accounting for CRT televisions, which had a bit of a natural blur. You'd get a kind of free anti-aliasing effect because the way the image was displayed on the tube would actually smooth out the rough edges. So what you're seeing now are raw polygons without a CRT filter, not how it actually looked on original hardware. We do have a pretty robust CRT filter though. If you want a preview, it's the one used in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, and we're using that same version here. So that is why you guys are saying and thinking it looks horrible. That's why. We're straight up seeing just raw pixels and polygons, and it's, you know, it needs that CRT filter. Now, the second half here, he says, So you'll be able to see something much closer to what you remember from walking into an arcade, obviously when using the CRT filter. That said, it's still in development. Again, that's part of the process, but yeah, it can be surprising, especially if you're used to a game like Deception or Armageddon and you think that 3D Mortal Kombat game, this is definitely an earlier coin-op title running at a lower resolution than you're probably used to, and without a CRT filter applied. So give it some time, and when you actually put your hands on it, you might still be surprised by how low res it looks and feels, but it's going to be as authentic as we can make it. So, booyah! For you guys who have been seeing the Trilogy gameplay at EVO and you think it just looks way too sharp, chill. Take a chill pill. Again, in regards to CRT filters and display stuff, Dan goes on to say, we'd rather run at a lower resolution at the original frame rate than try to make it look better and have it play worse. We're never going to do that again. As historical preservationist, Digital Eclipse wants to say, warts and all, this is what it is. It might not be as beautiful as you remember it being in your memory, but this is what it actually is. And that's part of our commitment to historical preservation. So I honestly think it's exciting to know that they're using the Rita's Rewind CRT filter, because though I haven't bought that yet, I've seen how that filter looks in gameplay on YouTube and things of that sort. It looks pretty good. Digital Eclipse's filters have always been pretty spot on. So that game just dropped maybe like, what, 4 or 5 months ago. They're using it for this game as well. So there you go. Confirmation on what exactly CRT filter they're using. It's the one from their most recent Power Rangers game. So there you go. You guys can stop worrying and thinking, this game looks way too sharp. Once you toss on that filter, once it's in our hands, things should be good to go. Now, finally, the final topics of the day. What some would say is the worst Mortal Kombat games ever made. And to that I say, you've never played MK versus DC. All right. Mythologies, Sub-Zero, and Special Forces. There's a lot to unpack on these quotes. It's a bunch of quotes, so get some water, get a snack, and be prepared because there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it now. In regards to Mythologies, this is what Dan had to say. It's a brutally difficult game. I'm not going to argue that it's anything but a brutally difficult game. They really made it with a hardcore sensibility. 8 levels, but 6 lives just doesn't seem fair. There are surprise columns that come down and crush you, or you jump off a balcony thinking you'll land safely, and instead, you land dead. But it is what it is. It's also very important to see this as part of how games evolved. It's easy to take for granted that by the time you get to Shaolin Monks, everything is dialed in, but that's because they learned from previous Mortal Kombat action-adventure games. This was the first time the team ventured outside of a one-on-one fighting game to try something different. You don't get everything right the first time, but it's still a fun game on its own. Could it be more fun if it was less frustrating? Yes, I think so. That's why we added a save function. Woo! Yes! Infinite lives, save function, baby, and a rewind. Dan goes on to say, so you can load and save at any point. There's also a rewind function. So if you get crushed by a pillar and don't feel it's fair, you can rewind a few seconds and try again. We even give you the option, if you want it, to change the number of lives. Instead of 6, you can have 1,000, and that's our nod to the fact that we know how incredibly difficult and frustrating the game can be. But with a few softeners added, this game becomes an opportunity to experience important Mortal Kombat lore, like the origin of the rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. The same goes for Special Forces. What's the backstory of the Black Dragon Clan? What did Jax do beforehand? These games matter, especially to fans who care about the story and characters we've all grown to know. So again, a massive shout out to Digital Eclipse, because this is the best case scenario. I know there's some of the hardcore commenters gonna leave a comment saying if you use the rewind button, you're not a real Mortal Kombat player and all that stuff. I get it. However, you can't say this point is invalid. If you make this game, which has been coined as the hardest game in Mortal Kombat, easier, by default, it becomes more enjoyable. You know what I mean? So I'm glad to see they didn't just give us a raw ROM. They actually went in there and added improvements, quality of life assurances to make the experience probably better than you and I could ever remember. So again, that's fucking awesome. That is exactly the type of shit we need in Legacy Collection games of this sort. Moving on though, Dan goes on to say, and for those who've never played it, maybe because it's rare, expensive, or simply had a bad reputation, this is the perfect chance to play it in its original form. If you still agree it's not enjoyable, try out some of our enhancements. Maybe you'll think, I like this game more if I could rewind. Well, now you can. And that changes the experience. Your opinion should come from your own experience, not just what people online say. Don't believe the hype that it's a crappy game. Play it yourself and decide if it's crappy or not. All I really gotta say is well said, Dan. That is very appropriate. I agree completely, and I think these quality of life changes are gonna make a lot of people change their opinion on these OG spin-off Mortal Kombat games. Now, second paragraph here, Dan says, now regarding Special Forces, isn't there a version that had Sonya Blade as a playable character alongside Jax? Whatever happened to that? Well, we do have some screenshots of that in our interactive documentary. The version we got wasn't stable enough to include. We didn't have it at the start of the project, so we couldn't ask for permission in time. I don't know whether we could have gotten permission anyway. It was never publicly released. And I can understand if you're NetherRealm Studios or WB and you're thinking, that's not our best foot forward. We convinced them that the final retail version of Special Forces was worth including because it's important to the lore and we could throw in some cheats to make it more playable. They agreed to that. They're proud of the arcade legacy, and they accepted that these home versions are part of the story, even if they initially asked, are you guys sure you want to include those? And we said, yeah, we really do. They understood it was about telling the larger story. Now, the last quote in regards to Special Forces, again, from Dan Amrick, is this right here. That early version of Special Forces kept crashing when I tried playing it. I was able to get a few screenshots showing Sonya Blade in motion. It's very similar to what you've seen, though there are probably some different subsystems in it. The reason for the differences is because the team changed. People like John Tobias and others left to form their own studio. That kind of shift happens a lot in game development. I found a copy late in the process and was able to run it, but it was buggy. To include it, we would have needed permission and time for our engineers to stabilize it. We had neither, so I said, how about screenshots? And NetherRealm said, sure. That's where we are with the lost version of Special Forces. It's out there, just not in here because we found it too late. So, for better or worse, guys, never say never. At least it's in the hands of Digital Eclipse. Maybe, again, down the line as DLC, the team will find time to give us this super duper rare unreleased version of Special Forces, because why not at this point? But the legal hurdles they'd have to go through, because again, it was never released officially, it's probably a nightmare. So what I would have probably done instead of just doing screenshots was probably get as much gameplay as I could as it was stabilized and have that in the documentary. Obviously screenshots are great, but maybe like 10 minutes of gameplay or something, like just a quick showcase of that different build. Again, just what I would have done, because if there was ever anybody that could have stabilized it to the best of their abilities, it's gonna be Digital Eclipse. So that probably would have been the clearest version of any type of gameplay we would see from that. So just throwing that out there, Digital Eclipse, if you want to just give us some raw footage of that, not just screenshots, I think that would be fucking cool. I think it would be cool. But guys, again, that's all I got for y'all today. Did not think this would actually be 20 minutes. Again, just highlighting a few things of note from this interview that MK Secrets had at Gamescom with Digital Eclipse's own Dan Amrick. Again, if you want to see the full interview, there's a bunch of other stuff worth listening to. I'll have it linked down below. But I gotta ask you, are you excited for MK3 WaveNet? Are you now more excited to play Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero with all these quality of life changes? Same for Special Forces. Are you relieved that the game will have a CRT filter so it does not look super duper duper sharp and hurt your eyes? Let me know your thoughts down below, and if you enjoyed, you know the drill by now. It takes you a second, drop a like on it, subscribe to some more MK content like this on the channel. Till next time, been your host, been Dynasty. Guys, please stay care, stay safe. I love you. Thank you for everything. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Living on it crack, but I'm not sure.